Ugh, brother, ugh. What's that?
MashaAllah, brother.
Assalamu alaikum. Now, we all know that living in the West as a Muslim is perhaps not the easiest thing. And, over the past few years now, I've come across people who are considering making their way out of Western society, Western uh, countries, and so on. Now, I'm in South Africa, and I wouldn't consider it uh, a first world. Of course, it's not a first world Western society based country, right? But I will say that South Africa is very much, following suit of Western style things, and especially obviously in the city framework, the main metropolitan areas are very much standardized on, Western secular ethic and social norms. So, in that sense, I would say that yes, I am living in the West. But like I said, there's people who are, well, Muslims specifically, who are considering hijrah, right? So basically, moving out of wherever they are living for the sake of Allah to perhaps a better location, right? As the Prophet ﷺ had done in his lifetime as well. So now there is this idea as to where exactly should we go to, I mean, I've considered for myself as well. Um, but I mean, there's many factors to that, and uh, you know, of course, number one being where exactly do we go? Because we do know that um, even Muslim countries are somewhat following suit with regards to westernization, and secularity, unfortunately. So, but of course, there are good options out there, and perhaps while things are not ideal, there are better circumstances out there, I'd say. Nevertheless, you could say home is still home, and like, starting a new life out wherever, right, is going to be a challenging task in any case. So in today's video, I'm going to be reacting to a video by a Mustafa, or the channel's name is Mustafa. I take it that the brother who's presenting this, who's presenting in the video, his name is perhaps Mustafa. um, so he is basically explaining he's going to rank Muslim countries to move to for hijrah, perhaps based on his subjective, you know, ideas as to which is best. And then there is a surprise one that he's kind of blurring out, which I'm quite keen to see. Perhaps what is this country that is uh, perhaps the best out of them. In any case, I think this would be quite interesting. So, inshallah, let's have a look.
Finding the right country to move to can be hugely overwhelming and stressful. There's so many factors to take into consideration, making it impossible to find the best one. So let's make this easy for you. I'm going to rank 7 of the most popular countries for hijrah, and I'm also going to reveal a bonus country that no one is speaking about, and it's actually the country that I decide to move to. Together, we're going to find out which country is the best and which country is the worst, using this tier list, from S being the best all the way down to F being the worst. So the 3 main factors that I'm going to use to rank these countries are the cost of living, the safety, and the country in general as a
So this is interesting because these three factors are quite important. Cost of living, especially with the global economy that we understand it to be today. I think that's one of the many or main factors that many people are considering, with regards to hijrah. And of course, when it comes to safety, I mean, here in South Africa, I mean, just go Google our crime stats, and you know how safe our country actually is. It's actually not that safe, not at all. So there's that. And then, of course, just generally the country, how's the people, what's the infrastructure like, what's the atmosphere, I'd call it. Interesting.
whole. All of this is my personal opinion. I have no hidden agendas, so take it easy. So the first country on the list is actually my hometown. And to prove to you how unbiased I actually am and how much I don't have an agenda, we're going to slap this straight into F. I'm joking. So Pakistan's cost of living is pretty cheap, and the European currency will take you a long way over there. It's also not
So this is an important factor to get as well, right? So based on where you are, um, it's pretty subjective as to, for instance, if you're moving out of the West, perhaps a first world country, Western country, and moving out into, for instance, Pakistan is the example there, you would consider, yes, life is going to be much cheaper, because you're coming in with a stronger currency. And I mean, bringing it back to where I'm from, South Africa, our currency has taken such a huge dip over the past 20, 30 years, that for a South African to, for instance, go over to Pakistan, Pakistan would still be considerably cheaper based on what I understand, but it's not the same as an American or Brit moving over to Pakistan.
To have some of the most best food in the world. Maybe not so great for your six pack, but it's definitely good. But on the other hand, they've been going through some real shaky times recently. Without going into the boring politics, let's just say it's a very unstable environment right now. There's a huge divide between the people that are living there and the people up top that are in charge. So safety is definitely not the greatest right now. Another clear indication that Pakistan's not in the greatest of situations is that most of the people in Pakistan do their utmost best to save as much money as they can to move to one of the other countries that are on this list. And if that's not a clear sign, then I don't know what is. So as a country to relocate to, it's going to have to go into E. Now, Dubai is known for its...
So just something about me. For me, I preferably, if I had my ideal situation, then I would move out into perhaps the more rural side of the country. And with regards to a lot of these countries that you see here, I've seen perhaps, well, not seen physically, but like I do some like research and perhaps look at YouTube videos on what the rural side looks like out there. And I mean, obviously, judging on that, it's not the most ideal thing, but nonetheless, you know, you sum up an idea as to what the space actually looks like and feels like in the people and so on and so forth. So, I mean, rural Pakistan is absolutely beautiful, and they have stunning natural scenery and so on. So you see, there's that type of subjectivity that can play around with different people, I'd say. Perhaps, again, I assume his name is Mustafa. He is looking at it from, you know, a metropolitan basis. He's probably wanting to live in the city, engage in the city life and so on. And from what I've seen in Pakistan, again, like the actual city centers perhaps don't look all the best, or perhaps it's not run the best. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, for me, I would consider it an E as well. Again, rural Pakistan, absolutely beautiful.
Flashy lifestyle. People from all over the world are staying there and enjoying themselves fully. Good weather, safer than Europe, and there's tons of entertainment. It also has a lot of opportunities to network with wealthy people. Not to mention, getting a visa there is one of the easiest compared to anything on this list. But I have to say, for Hijra, it's not the greatest. In my humble opinion, it's more like a diluted Europe. They're kind of 1 foot in and 1 foot out. It's very free and modern, but definitely not in a good way. Everyone from around the world goes there to have fun. Clubs, alcohol, women, you name it, it's out there, and it's all out in the open for you to see. It could actually be worse than Europe because of how contagious that lifestyle is. And the final nail in the coffin for me is, on top of everything, it's not cheap. It's actually pretty expensive to live there. So for me, I would say Dubai is not the best of options. But I will say, if you're looking to relocate to the UAE, Sharjah and Abu Dhabi is a much better place to relocate if you're trying to do Hijra. Dubai is going to go into D for me. But
I'd agree. Again, coming back to my preference, the UAE is not really the best in terms of the whole, exactly as you explained there, that, you know, it's just a diluted Europe basically, or diluted West, where all these negative things are, you know, for free out into society. It's still, and regardless, it's a Muslim country, but I mean, again, alcohol, women, clubs, partying, and so on, which for a Muslim is not really ideal. In terms of the rural aspects, it's probably also not the best because, again, then it's just desert, and we all know how hot it can get there. So I wouldn't really prefer the UAE.
Abu Dhabi and Sharjah, they'll go into D. Okay, so now we have Egypt. This one here is one of the most popular destinations for Hijra, and I can kind of see why. Egypt has Islamic teaching in abundance over there. I'll give it that. And it is home to some of the best Islamic institutes in the world. So that is a huge pro. The cost of living is pretty cheap, it's pretty modern, and there's a lot of stuff to do out there in general. And it's a Muslim country. The ironic thing that no one talks about when talking about Egypt, unless you're living in an Islamic learning neighborhood such as Nasser City, it's very well known that the officials up there give the brothers a very hard time. So if you're walking around with your big beard and you're wearing a thobe and you're about your business, you're going to get stopped a lot of the time. They're going to waste your time, they're going to question your motive, and overall just give you a hard time. And in some cases, before you leave, they're going to try and extort you and try to take money off you. And I wish I was joking, it's genuinely the truth. Another major factor that you need to consider, that Egypt isn't safe. The locals will know in a split second that you're not from around here, and you'll have a huge target on your head, and you'll be getting hustled left, right, and center. And trust me, it gets very jarring, always being approached, being followed, you're out with your missus, and someone's trying to make a quick buck off you and not leaving you alone. Get used to getting overcharged for everything until you get familiar with the local prices. However, if you have a good income and you can live in a better neighborhood, then
You know, as a South African, hearing that For instance, in Egypt, where it's considered not, but based on what Mustafa is saying here, that it's not the safest. But you know, compare that to what we as South Africans experience and what we understand what safety actually is. I mean, here we're talking about you know, unaliving and being robbed and all these perhaps heavier crimes. You know, if someone's going to stop me and try to get a quick buck, I think as South Africans we like, it's not that bad. But again, I understand what the brother is saying here. They quite annoying. I'd say that would be annoying.
It is a great option. You'll be in a gated community, you'll have watchmen, you have security, no one's going to hustle you. It's just full of expats and richer people. You're going to be comfortable. But if you can't afford that, then you might want to reconsider and look into your decision a bit more. So Egypt for me is going into C. So now we have Morocco, the closest country to Europe on this list. If you intend on going back and forth, then this is a great fit for you. Flights are always cheap and it's only a couple of hours away. The cost of living, though, truly depends on where you live. If you want to stay in the bigger cities, then it's not as cheap as you might think. If you don't mind staying in the less popular cities, then the prices are much better. But keep in mind that in the popular cities and the bigger cities, they'll be able to communicate in English, in French, so communication will be less of an issue. If you're in the village and in the less popular cities, then you're going to struggle. So there's two big negatives to Morocco. One is there's a lot of hustling and a lot of scamming. Being an outsider, you're definitely going to fall victim to this. I was there not long ago and I was there for quite some time, and there's a lot of dodgy people. I got pickpocketed, you get looked at differently, you'll get approached differently. There's a lot of dodgy people there and you've always got to be on point. And that gets very annoying and frustrating when you just want to chill out and not worry about anything. You just always have to be on point. So the second huge negative that if you don't know about already, then you've probably been living under a rock. Without going into too much detail, let's just say there's a lot of exposure to the things that you wouldn't want to see or you would want your family to see. In the main cities and in the popular places, it's very much in your face. In the smaller cities, it's not so much in your face, but it's definitely still there. So for me, Morocco is going into E. Okay, so now we have Indonesia, a country that a lot of us have slept on. It has over 240 million Muslims. It is the most Muslim populated country in the world. The cost of living is super cheap. You can eat out every day, not cook a day in your life, and it will still be cheaper than how much you pay for your groceries in Europe. Crazy. They have amazing destinations within Indonesia too, so you don't actually have to leave the country if you want to have a quick getaway. The most popular one, of course, being Bali, a place filled with a lot of expats from all over the world. It's a bit more commercial and touristy, but of course Indonesia does have its flaws, one of them being the communication. Unless you're in the more touristic sides like Bali or Jakarta, you might struggle to communicate with the locals. English obviously isn't their first language. The second one being, it's a very far place from Europe. From London to Indonesia, it's about 15 hours. So obviously on top of that, the flight tickets are not cheap. Taking that into consideration, it's not practical at all if you're trying to go back and forth. However, if you can work around these two hurdles, then it is overall an amazing place to live. It has to go into B tier for me. So now we have
Indonesia, and I suspect Malaysia that is coming up to next. I think for me is one of the better countries. As he explained there, it's a very scenic country as well. Well, not scenic perhaps, but it's very lush, and I like lush. I like the greenery. I think the locals are quite chilled in that way also. Yeah.
Saudi Arabia, the motherland to all of us Muslims and a truly, truly special place. I was living in Medina for quite some time as well, and I can definitely say they are some of the most friendliest and some of the most loving people that I've ever met in my life. The country itself is very well developed, and they're investing huge money in building this country up. Their king is hugely ambitious, and he's doing whatever it takes and whatever it costs to make his country a giant, and he is. And in my opinion, within the next 10 years, you're going to see Saudi up there. So the interesting thing about Saudi, it's like two countries in one. On one hand, you've got Mecca and Medina, which is a super religious and calm, peaceful place. And on the other hand, you've got places like Riyadh and Jeddah, which are going on a complete different direction and competing with its neighbors like Dubai. We all know about the questionable things that are happening in Saudi and the rules changing, but as a person from Europe that's not used to Islam in their country, they're so far ahead of us in terms of Islam being in a country, you're not even going to realize. Medina, in my opinion, is the pinnacle of Hijrah. And if you're not happy in Medina, then bro...
Yeah, I guess that's the dream way to live in Medina or Makkah. And I think for many of us that's inaccessible because, of course, this is the dream of so many Muslims around the world. So, I mean, I don't know what the chances are of myself moving there, but as it is for many other people. But yeah, this being one of the factors that, look, I'll actually rule out Saudi. simply because the other cities within Saudi are again competing with the UAE and Qatar and so on, which I've already identified that this is not to my liking because of this, I call it a party vibe that's out there, Dubai and so on. That's just well, you could say that Jeddah, for instance, is not Dubai in the sense that they are still trying to be a bit conservative, considering that this is the Holy Land, But of course, from the political point of view, I do understand that there's this movement towards liberalizing the population there. So for me, that's certainly not ideal.
I don't know what to tell you. You're not going to be happy. Anyway, you might as well go to hell. If you want more freedom, then Jeddah or Riyadh is definitely going to be more for you. But I also have to tell you that the cost of living isn't that cheap, especially for stuff like groceries and stuff. There was times where I was in Medina and I'll go grocery shopping and I'll end up spending double what I normally spend on grocery in London. How does that make sense? But that also means that Saudi has everything that you could possibly want. You'll never be deprived or feel like you're missing out on something from back home. They will have it. Might be a bit more, but they will have it. So this brings us to the biggest downside of Saudi, and that is the visa issue. It is next to impossible to get a visa out there. Unless you're sponsored or have a job out there, then bro, good luck to you. If you're thinking about going there to start your own business, to settle down and do your own thing, you've got another thing coming. It's not impossible, but you have to know the right people, i.e. me. I got you. This would definitely go into S tier for me, but because of the fact that it's so difficult to go there and to stay there in peace, I'm going to have to put it into A. So now we have Malaysia. Beautiful country, and it's far more modern than you actually think. Another very popular country that a lot of Muslims go to for hijrah. Super clean, a lot of greenery, a lot of nature, good weather, good culture, great food. You've got a blend of everything over there. It's very similar to Indonesia in my opinion, but I would say, with all due respect, a bit more modern. It's not as cheap as Indonesia, but it's definitely cheaper than most of the other countries on this list. A lot of the Malaysians learn English in school, so communicating with them is pretty easy as well. Another huge pro about Malaysia that not everyone knows about, it has some of the best medical hubs in the world. People from all over the world fly there for the medical needs, and it is much cheaper. And the little cherry on top, it has some of the most best Islamic schools in the world. A solid pick, and that's going into B for me. And finally, the bonus wild card, the country that I chose.
From what I understand, also that Malaysia is not the easiest country to get into as well, with perhaps visas and so on. Yeah, I've watched a video of a brother who also was trying to make it into Malaysia. And I think because of all those factors that the brother has mentioned there, lots of Muslims are considering Malaysia, and already both Indonesia and Malaysia, which I've identified as one of my top, suits. It is a populated place or places, Indonesia and Malaysia. So perhaps that's why they are so perhaps strict on, letting people in. And of course, this would require the government to look after more people and so on. So it does make sense, but it is, I think, an ideal place to go live in for a Muslim. So let's see what's this final one. I'm suspecting Turkey. I've heard some good things about Turkey. That's the only one I can think of, really. I mean, I don't know. Where else would there be? Bangladesh? No. Iran? No. Iraq? No. Where else? What other Muslim countries are there? I can't think of anything just yet, but Middle East, not for me. Far East Asia, as we've seen there, perhaps North Africa, I doubt. So I guess it would be Turkey, which we consider Middle East. I don't know, not really, but I'll call it the edge bit, this link between Europe and Asia. But I suspect it's Turkey. Let's check it out.
To move to over all of these other options. And funny enough, I actually never knew about this country until I started looking into hijrah properly. So I made a simple checklist, and this country ticked every single box for me. I was sick of the city life in London and the fast pace and the glitters and the glamours. I wanted to go somewhere that was quiet, somewhere that was peaceful, somewhere that was relaxed. But it had to be modern and not some village. It had to have good facilities and somewhere that had nice weather all year round. I also had to take into consideration that لا أتكلم عربي. I don't speak Arabic. So I had to go to a country where they spoke English and I could communicate with them. But the main issue with all these other countries was the visa. I wasn't going to move to another country to go set up shop and go work for someone, and my visa depended on this guy, whether he wants to hire me or fire me. I might be there for a week and I'm out the next week. In most of these countries that I've spoken about on this list, if you want to start a business, it'll be your idea, your plan, your savings, your money, you'll pay for everything, you'll do everything, but you have to partner up with a stranger from that country to get approved. And if you haven't got that person, then you're not getting approved. So basically, in short, you've got to trust a stranger with a lot of your money and hope that he doesn't rip you off. Yeah, I'm not playing that game. I wanted to start my own thing and I wanted 100% ownership over it. And it could be whatever I wanted, including working from home on my own projects. And I found it. A country that ticked every single box. And the huge bonus on top of that is it's one of the cheapest on this list. Groceries, the cost of renting properties, the cost of buying a car,
Curious
petrol, everything that you need in a day-to-day life that is pretty expensive, it's peanuts over here. And that country is Oman, the diamond of the Arabian Peninsula. And I'm so glad I found it. Alhamdulillah. If you've not looked into Oman and you're serious about living the best possible life as an expat, then you need to watch this video next. You'll have a full insight of what Oman has to offer and what life really is like living here as an expat.
I would never have guessed Oman. I've heard positive things about Oman from videos I've watched as well. But I don't know. It's not my first preference. I think maybe it's because Middle Eastern climate is not my favorite. Not that it's like it's the defining factor, but I don't know. I'm not really much into the Middle East really. Again, you mentioned there that you don't want the village lifestyle. For me, if I could find perhaps an off-grid community, Muslim community, then that would be ideal in perhaps a tropical looking space, as I've already mentioned, the Malaysias or Indonesias. For me, in totality, I'd say that, where I'm from, Cape Town, our Muslim population or community is very bustling. And, I know the place in and out. I know the culture, my family's here, and I think that I do so well here in Cape Town, being a Muslim, and it is accommodating. South Africa is a very accommodating place, so there isn't really much pushback when it comes to really practicing your religion freely. Of course, in any liberal democracy, you wouldn't be able to express Islam to its fullest capacity, but considering the circumstances, we are allowed to say certain things more so than in, let's say, Europe or in America. So I think that's great with South Africa. In terms of hijrah, I've already mentioned what I think is my best preferences. But yeah, again, there's so many factors that comes into play for if it is actually possible to move out. So remember to like if you enjoyed this video. This helps grow my channel, and then also subscribe if you're new. And remember to turn on the notification bell so that you are updated with my latest uploads. Shukran, jazakallah khair for tuning in.